I'm Lee Berger, and your host for this interview with Keith Sandlin, the former and retired CEO of Cartersville Medical Center. Today is July 21st, 2018, and we're at the home of the Sandlins. Let's start at the beginning.
Okay.
At the very beginning. Where were you born, and how did you get here?
Yeah, I'm a native of Athens, Alabama, near Huntsville. My dad spent most of his career with NASA, so I grew up there, as did my wife, Carol. So we were high school sweethearts. And after high school, I went to the University of Alabama and majored in corporate finance and investments. And really my junior year in college, that was back in the day when companies came to campus and did on-campus interviews. I really hadn't thought much about the hospital industry, but I interviewed with Humana on campus, and I really became intrigued with healthcare administration and hospitals, and they offered me a job. So upon graduation in 1977, I started in the Humana. It was basically the chief financial officer training program, and worked with them in Muscle Shoals, Alabama for about a year, near Jackson, Tennessee, in Mobile, Alabama, and then ultimately in Greensboro, North Carolina for about a little over 3 years as chief operating officer of a hospital. And at that time, Humana was working on getting a certificate of need. They talked to the Bartow County leadership and community here about possibly taking over the hospital. The county was interested in getting out of the healthcare business, and they were looking for a professional team to manage the hospital.
Let's talk about that a little bit. It was Sam Howell Hospital.
Correct.
It was here for a number of years, and Humana bought Sam Howell.
Right.
And did you operate it there where the old hospital was or is now?
We did. Sam Howell was originally opened in 1962. It was what was called a Hill-Burton Hospital. It was back in the day, and I think it was in 1946 the Hill-Burton Act was passed, and President Truman really wanted to provide funding for communities to have their own community hospitals through grants and loans. So that's how the Sam Howell Memorial Hospital came to be. Opened in 1962. Like many small community hospitals, struggled over the years, so they lacked capital investment. They had a difficult time recruiting physicians. So at that point, the county started looking for a partner to be with them in healthcare. So yes, when Humana bought the Sam Howell Memorial Hospital in 1983, and we operated that facility for 2 years while the new hospital at that time, Humana Hospital, was being constructed on the existing site. We moved out there in the fall of 1985.
Before we get too far into this interview, let's talk about your wife, Carol. Tell us a little bit about how you met.
Carol and I, Carol is the same age as my younger brother. So we knew each other a little bit in school, but not well, and we had a blind date, and I was kind of smitten.
She apparently was blind.
Yeah,
yeah. Okay.
I was smitten. She was not so much smitten. So I had to court her, and we became closer, and like I say, ultimately married, and we've got 3 beautiful daughters and nice son-in-laws and grandkids.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your children. Tell us about your children.
Carrie's our oldest daughter. She's married to Brent, and they have a son and a daughter, and they live in Fort Collins, Colorado. They're both physical therapists and love what they do. They both work with children, so they really enjoy that and enjoy Colorado, and we enjoy visiting them, obviously. Claire is our middle daughter, and her husband's Robbie, and they have 2 boys, Jake and Levi. They're 10 and 8. And they live in Milton, Georgia, so not too far from Cartersville. We get to see them pretty frequently. And then Katie is our youngest daughter, and she's married to Tyler, and they have two young boys, McCrae and Collier, and they're 4 and 2, and they live in Houston, Texas.
Let's talk about the future. We talked a little bit about the past, and we're going to get back to all the name changes at the Cartersville Medical Center.
All right.
But this is July 21st, 2018. Tell me where you think we're going to be July 1st, 2118
Wow.
in healthcare.
Gosh, who knows, Lee? I think this community will be well served. I think with health care. I think the local medical community, the hospital, and the medical staff should continue to grow significantly as the population grows. You know, our philosophy was always, if you meet the needs of the community, you'll be successful, and I think we enjoyed a lot of success at Cartersville Medical Center and continue to have success there. So I see the hospital becoming really a regional kind of trauma center, a regional medical center with every specialist needed and continuing to grow. In terms of healthcare in general, who knows? I think the reimbursement challenges, the insurance challenges, I wouldn't be surprised if we don't have a single payer system at some point in time. But it's becoming, just more and more expensive every year. So, if you're fortunate enough to have insurance or to be on a government-funded health plan, you're okay. If you're unfortunate and don't have insurance and can't afford to buy insurance, access to the healthcare providers and getting necessary medications and other things can become very, very difficult.
Well, I mentioned the fact that Cartersville Medical Center has had about 5 different names, and 4 or 5 different companies have owned the hospital. Let's go back. We started with Humana. Then what happened?
Yeah, it's really kind of an interesting evolution, and it continues. I mentioned that Humana acquired the hospital from Bartow County as Sam Howell Memorial Hospital. After about 6 years, Humana's leadership, Humana was based in Louisville, Kentucky, still is based in Louisville, Kentucky, shifted from being an operator and owner of hospitals to owning and operating insurance products. They tried to do both for a couple of years and really realized there's a conflict of interest and just didn't work well. So Humana chose to be a full-time insurance company. At that point in time, they spun the hospital division off, and as I recall, there were about 90 hospitals that Humana owned, us being one of them, into a company called Galen. It was Galen Healthcare. So for about a year, we operated as Cartersville Medical Center, but our parent company was Galen. Well, the Galen leadership decided that bigger would be better. So and about that time, there was a consolidation had started in the healthcare industry, and there was a fellow named Rick Scott who was kind of in the background. Well, first of all, Humana or Galen merged with HCA, Hospital Corporation of America, which is based in Nashville, Tennessee. And while that was going on, Hillary Clinton and her husband, President Bill Clinton, were talking about massive changes in health care. Everybody got really worried about Hillary Clinton's health care plan, as did the leadership of HCA. So they decided to look for new leadership, and they went with Rick Scott, current governor of Florida, who probably has bigger political aspirations. Rick Scott's very small company at that time was Columbia Healthcare. So our hospital then became a part of Columbia Healthcare. Well, Mr. Scott he became very aggressive in acquiring home health agencies and outpatient centers and other hospitals, and really became so aggressive that he irritated the government, and the government intervened in some of the activities that he had initiated. He left the company There was a major government investigation of HCA / Columbia Healthcare at that time. So things really were kind of at standstill for a few years until all the government investigations got cleared up. While that was going on, HCA brought in a new leadership team who kind of got things back on track. And shortly after that, Cartersville Medical Center was approached by Emory Healthcare out of Atlanta. And the feeling was that there could be some good synergies between Emory and the city and Cartersville Medical Center and a growing community here. They could help us bring in physicians and specialists that we needed, and we could help them in terms of subspecialty care, sending some patients to them. So we were under that arrangement for about 3 years, but Emory really, they felt like they had bigger fish to fry inside the perimeter and some other communities, so they really kind of lost interest, so to speak, in Cartersville. So we exited that arrangement with Emory, and really ever since then, that was in the early 2003, 2004, we've been at HCA Cartersville
Were
Medical
you
Center.
always the CEO under all of these companies?
I was the
How
CEO.
did you survive that? 'Cause
Well,
most people don't survive 5 different bosses. Or
well, I guess just persistence and flexibility, and again, my focus in Cartersville has always been, just try to do what's in the best interest of the community, meet the needs of the community, no matter who the corporate ownership is, no matter who our bosses outside of Cartersville are. If we keep our eye on that ball, do what we need to do to grow the hospital and to grow the medical staff, things would be okay. And I think in retrospect, that philosophy served us pretty well.
and now you're a HCA hospital,
Correct.
and that's the base of the company is in Nashville, Tennessee.
Yeah, and HCA, they're the largest hospital system in the USA. They're the largest employer of physicians in the country now. Great leadership team, very stable leadership team, and there's an awful lot of consolidation going on in hospital business and healthcare right now. Small standalone community hospitals probably aren't going to be able to survive very long in this environment. So everybody's looking to be a part of a system which provides great opportunities for HCA and other companies.
Well, as we speak, Emory and Piedmont and all of these different hospital chains, Northside, are buying all these smaller hospitals.
That's right. Everybody's trying to increase their footprint, and the bigger the footprint gets, the more leverage they have with the payers. They can kind of command higher reimbursement rates from the insurance companies.
I've said several times I never wanted to be a school superintendent, and I never wanted to be the executive director of the Chamber of Commerce. And the other one was to be the administrator of the hospital. Nurses, doctors, patients. It's got to be a constant. You got up every day and wanted to go to work?
Yeah, you had to, and I really loved what I did for the most part. Like any position, there are frustrations and there are challenges, because what I liked about it was the diversity. Because those parties that you mentioned, you have employees from, environmental services and dietary workers to X-ray techs and lab techs and OR nurses to physicians and everything in between. And with that, it was just, you never had to worry about getting bored. You were doing something different almost every day. But with that too, it's kind of a myriad of potential issues and problems and challenges that you dealt with. So you have to have the mindset to embrace that. Some people get frustrated with it, and it's like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? But my every day driving into work is like, okay, something out of the ordinary is going to happen today, so let's just bring it on, and we'll figure out how to deal with it and collaborate with the team and get through it. So I enjoyed it.
Do you recall one of those days that was not ordinary?
there are a number of those days that were not ordinary, and Carol could describe those days for you pretty well. Probably, generally, I would come home and I wouldn't have a whole lot to say. I tend to kind of get real quiet and reflective when I have those kinds of days, but and give it a little time and think through it, and again, come up with the game plan. I mean, dealing with people, as you know, particularly just diverse groups of people, and patients and physicians and staff, there are always going to be issues. But one thing I learned over the years, most of the time, if you're a party to those things, it's not personal. It's generally a different business agenda, different motivations that they have than what you have. So if you take an open-minded, collaborative approach, hopefully you can reach some kind of resolution most of the time.
I do that all the time. Let's talk about the growth of the Cartersville Medical Center from the day you came in '84 to today. You've expanded the hospital a lot.
Yeah, it's been really almost a constant expansion, Lee. Of course we went from 62-bed Sam Howell Hospital to the new 80-bed Humana Hospital Cartersville in 1985. That was an 80,000 square foot facility. About 6 months after we moved into the hospital, we opened a 20,000 square foot medical office building or physician building that was connected to the hospital. It was a 3-story facility, the first 3-story facility in Bartow County at the time, and immediately in that first year we were able to recruit 6 new physicians, which was huge. We brought in a new general surgeon, new orthopedic surgeon, new pediatrician, new OBGYN, new ophthalmologist, a new internal medicine doctor. So that really got a lot of momentum going for us. Our emergency room volumes increased significantly with the new surgeons. Our operating room volumes increased significantly. We needed more ICU beds. So within 3 years after opening the Humana Hospital Cartersville, we were expanding. The first expansion we did was an emergency room expansion.
How many times have you done that since?
We've expanded the emergency room 3 times since that initial expansion. And what had happened, and we kind of anticipated some of this, because before we moved to Humana Hospital Cartersville in 1985, 85% of Bartow County residents who needed health care were leaving the community. They were going to Marietta, Atlanta, Rome, elsewhere for health care. So we knew there was a lot of pent-up demand. The community was very receptive to the new hospital and new physicians coming in. So, and with those new physicians, with the new hospital, young physicians saw it as an opportunity, and we sold as an opportunity to get in really on the ground floor of something very special. Growing community close to Atlanta with all the benefits that it has to offer. So for a few years there, physician recruitment and the young physicians wanted more colleagues, younger physicians as well. So everybody was pulling in the same direction, and we had great success in terms of physician recruitment and building the medical staff. And with that came the need for more patient beds, and so we added emergency room beds, operating room beds, ICU beds, a new mother-baby unit. Our current bed count is 120, and a lot of new technology along with that. So the 80,000 square foot original facility is about 250,000 square foot now, and 1 small medical office building. There are 4 larger medical office buildings on campus with a multitude of physicians and other services. So a lot of growth.
You talked about community involvement. Let's talk about the city and the county governments. They were very helpful at the beginning of all this.
Absolutely. Of course, our initial dealings were mostly with the county, since it was a previous county facility. But yeah, the community leadership has been nothing but supportive. Of course, Frank Moore initially, and of course Commissioner Taylor now, Clarence Brown for many years. Really has helped. And at one time we considered being annexed into the city, or I considered it. I thought it might be a good idea, and I was got straightened out pretty quickly on that from the from the county school system and other county leaders, which is good. So we've always remained in the county, and I think it served us well. We've got great relationships with both the city and the county.
Okay. Let's talk about technology. What a change from 1984 to 2018.
It's unbelievable, the technology. Imaging modalities back in the the mid '80s. If you had a CAT scanner, a CT scanner, I mean, that was really something special. That was about as advanced as imaging technology got. Now you have all the MRI, all the interventional
PET scans,
PET scans, ultrasound, echocardiograms. The imaging has just changed tremendously. Same with laboratory equipment. You can almost get instant diagnosis with laboratory equipment. The radiation therapy equipment that we have at the Hope Center now is just where it used to take several weeks of constant treatment. You can get treatment over a couple of weeks and get many issues resolved. Just hospital beds that the nurses deal with, IV pumps, everything practically has a computer chip or some sort of high technology with all this equipment talking to each other now in the operating room. Minimally invasive procedures. I mean, surgeries that used to be a 5 or 6 day length of stay in the hospital are now done on an outpatient basis. So yeah, the technology is just changes have just been phenomenal and continue. Robotic surgery. I heard earlier this week, one of the fastest growing companies, I think, on the New York Stock Exchange is Intuitive Surgical Company. They're the ones that make the Da Vinci robots, which most hospitals have now. So it's just incredible changes.
Well, through the years, the progress has been that everybody was going out of town for services, and you kept adding those services through the years.
Yeah, and as we added services, we saw that outmigration turn around. Our market share is up around 70% now. And in a community hospital, you're always going to have some people that are going to leave town. There are going to be services that we aren't able to offer, psychiatric services, and at this point, open heart services and neurosurgery. So some things people should and do leave town for. There's always going to be a certain segment of the population that feel like they've got to go out of town, that bigger is better, And so there's always a little bit of that battle in a community hospital. But that being said, we have made tremendous progress. And again, it goes to, I think, the community support, too. They have confidence in our local medical community, and that's just a great thing to see.
Valet parking, too, now.
That we did add valet parking. And the latter, 5 years or so of my career at Cartersville Medical Center, the most frequently asked question is, when are you going to get a parking deck? What are you going to do about parking? Right. So, and of course, as we all know, parking decks are extremely expensive, right, and generally people don't want to have to pay for it. So it's hard to build a business case, but there will be a parking deck at Cartersville Medical Center one day, I'm sure.
Okay. Let's talk about your relationship. It seems to be the trends that medical centers are buying up doctors' practices. Is that something that you were doing also?
We did a little bit of that, Lee. I think you got to look at each community kind of independently with that. For Cartersville and Bartow County, I think the independent practice model has served our community pretty well. There are a lot of big hospitals and hospital systems that employ doctors. You'd probably be hard-pressed to find a system that would say, yeah, we really do very well in terms of employing doctors and running physicians' practices. Most systems do it because they have to. It's kind of a defense. Either they're going to do it or the competitor's going to do it. And then you talk about having market share taken away from you and those kinds of things. Currently, Cartersville Medical Center employs about 4 physicians. The others are independent practitioners, including, of course, the Harbin Clinic, a large multi-specialty group that's based in Rome, but they have a large presence here. So we had always taken the approach that if we can work with our existing physicians to grow their practices and to bring in specialists and subspecialists, that probably is best for the community and the medical community as well. Now, if physicians get to the point where they're really not interested in growing, yeah, the hospital's going to have to employ some of those physicians, and you'll see some of that. You'll see that happening more and more here. It's certainly happening more and more nationally. Most younger physicians want to be employed by either a large multi-specialty physician group or a specialty physician group or a hospital system. It gives them that security. Plus, they don't have to take the risk of opening up an independent practice, which it's much harder to do now than it was 30 years ago to open a practice and run it yourself.
Let's go back to the additions and the growth of the Cartersville Medical Center. Have we talked about the Hope Center? How did it come about?
Yeah, the Hope Center, gosh, just a great service and great addition here. The process is if the hospital wants to add a significant new service or a service exceeding a certain dollar threshold, you file what's called a certificate of need application to the Department of Community Health of the state. They review that application, and one of the key criteria is they don't want you hurting another hospital or another health system. So it's really an antiquated law. Georgia is one of only about 10 states that still have certificate of need laws, because anytime you file a certificate of need from Cartersville Medical Center, you can anticipate that a hospital in Rome and probably a hospital or two in Atlanta are going to oppose that certificate of need because it's a service they already have and they're taking patients from Bartow County.
Yeah.
Of course, we want to keep those patients locally. So back to the question
Center.
about the Hope Center. We attempted a certificate of need on 2 occasions to get a linear accelerator radiation therapy treatment here, and was opposed by a large nonprofit hospital in Rome on both occasions, so we weren't approved. Went back a 3rd time with a little different approach. I had a lot of physician support, a lot of community support, and we got that approved. So back around 2000, the early 2000s, we were able to build the Hope Center. We already had a medical oncologist in the community, so we put the medical oncologist in the building with the LINAC, or the linear accelerator, the radiation therapy treatment. And that's just been a great service for our community. It's been a very successful service for the hospital, those physicians, as well as the community, because those patients no longer have to travel out of town. And we've just got a great group of oncologists and caregivers there.
Okay. You're retired. You enjoying it?
I am enjoying it. I'm enjoying it, finding plenty to do most days. Still, when you go at the pace that you go when you're working in a challenging environment, you kind of flip that switch and you have a little more downtime than you're accustomed to. So I probably get on Carol's nerves a little bit some days, but we're working at it and doing well. I like we both like to travel a lot, so we like the flexibility of being able to travel when we want to and visit the family and those kinds of things. And I'm playing with a group of senior golfers a couple of times a week at the country club and doing some other things. I am enjoying retirement.
Anybody asked you to be a consultant?
I've had a couple of inquiries about that, but and maybe down the road, but I'm not ready to do that yet. I'm enjoying the break, and if I get really stir crazy at some point, I may look at doing some of that, but not yet.
You decided to make Bartow County and Cartersville your home?
Well, it has been our home for 34 years now, and again, as many people know, Carol has a couple of businesses downtown, Canopy and right downtown, a couple of gift shops that she still works a good bit.
Are you going to work in any of the stores?
I probably won't be working at the stores. I haven't been offered a position there, so
Okay.
She'll let me take out the trash and change the light bulb from time to time, but that's about the extent of my involvement there. But no, we love Cartersville. When we moved here 34 years ago with 3 small preschool daughters, we never expected to be here as long as we have been, but it's home to us, and don't anticipate anything changing there.
I think somewhere along the way I asked the question, but how did you survive 33 years? with all those different
Well,
hospitals?
I don't know, Lee. I just, just kind of nose to the grindstone. I always enjoyed what I was doing, and I think the people that I worked for and the people that I reported to knew that I enjoyed what I was doing, and we enjoyed a certain amount of success here. So, like most, managers or leaders, you have an opportunity to do other things and move, take on, larger facilities, but again, my kind of attitude was, bigger is not necessarily better. Had a great situation here professionally, had a great situation here with the family. So, I was happy staying in Cartersville and working with folks at Cartersville Medical Center, which is a great team.
Let's back up a little bit and talk about your employees at the beginning when you came here as a 28-year-old young administrator.
Yeah, it was, again, back in the early and mid 80s, healthcare was really a pretty new industry. Our proprietary healthcare, tax-paying healthcare facilities, for-profit healthcare facilities, really a new industry. And for me to have an opportunity at that young age was pretty phenomenal. I mean, it was really special. But the attitude of the companies then was, we've got a number of people that want to be CEOs of our hospitals and our growing company. So you get a chance. If you make it work, good for you. Keep it going. If you don't make it work, we'll move you out and move somebody else in. So fortunately, it was a great situation in Cartersville, and we did make it work. But I recruited, other young progressive leaders as well. So we did have, for about the first 5 years in Cartersville, an under 30 leadership team, and of course, bringing in young physicians, which we kind of related to younger employees. So there was a youth movement early on for sure. And of course, over the years, I saw that completely change as I became older. And these young, it's like, wow, these folks are really, really young now. But it was great. And again, I think it's part of kind of getting that positive momentum going.
Keith, thank you for your time today. We really appreciate it. And the Etowah Valley Historical Society Oral History Committee really appreciate you being here today for July 21st, 2018.